Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Led by Life. I'm Rafaela. This is Hannah, and here we are, Gene Key 33. I had to tell you this, and I didn't want to tell you before we started, but you know how I'm doing like the artist way, and I'm coming up on week 4, and there's a part in this, spoiler alert, I guess, that it's a task or an activity, and it's an exercise really that she assigns that is called reading deprivation. So on Sunday, I read the upcoming week and like the chapter and all its tasks. And this week was like, you can't read. That's
Oh,
that's the reading deprivation. So I was like, okay, I guess if I'm gonna read the Gene Key, like I need to read it tonight now, before the end of the day, because to go along with, this process, I'm not going to be able to read it before today, like to refresh.
so
So,
you've had your week of no reading.
so yeah, I haven't like picked up a book or
Mm.
reread the Gene Key or read the chapter that you read in the beginning, which is why I was like, oh yeah, how great. Go ahead, read it to me, because I didn't get to read it. Um, and so I'm gonna lean a lot on asking you some questions because I don't, I mean, I remember, but
Mm.
tell us, what is this Gene Key 33 on? Like the basics.
Mm. Well, I had to read this a few times to let it kind of sink in.
Mhm.
And I really felt like this was one of those ones where you could just read it and then get to the end and still be a bit confused because it's maybe not so logical. It's more, um, yeah. Well, anyway, so a few key things that I really got from this was the idea of the ego death
Mhm.
and also the idea of self-awareness through mindfulness and how, because really that's what this whole process of exploring human design, exploring the gene keys, exploring all of these different things that can point us towards who we are
Mhm.
and almost have this kind of remembering of our true nature. And this is what this gene key is really so much about. So the shadow is about forgetting, the gift is mindfulness, and the Siddhi is revelation. And so for me, I don't know, I'm feeling like this pressure to explain something that I can't really put into words.
Yeah.
But there were things, and maybe as we continue talking, more will reveal itself and I'll remember more. But there was a lot to do with this idea of remembering and becoming more self-aware and noticing those moments where we want to fall back into the victim, the shadow expression, where we want to react. And he talks a lot about how this can kind of come up in our relationships. And yeah,
There
did
was
that
a part,
trigger
yeah.
anything?
Well, there was a part that I remember about the memory, right? So in this Gene Key, there's this like aspect of there being a memory that's not a memory of like that we know of, right? Like it's really kind of maybe in the subconscious or deep within like ourselves that we don't quite like recollect, maybe.
Mm,
If I Yeah. And then also like you have this one defined, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And then I was also thinking like we make up this channel
Mm.
too. So the
You've got
33,
the 13 and
yeah,
I've
and
got
I
the
have, right. And so the 33 is coming out of the throat. Um, and I guess like, do you in any way like relate with the gift?
gift of mindfulness.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I feel like it's a constant remembering for me. And so I wouldn't say that I've mastered the gift or that I'm, at that frequency of mindfulness all the time, but this is so much of the work I do. So I teach meditation and mindfulness. And I think that it's funny because I almost identified with being a mindfulness teacher and a meditation teacher for so long because I really understood the concepts. They made so much sense to me. And I felt like I just want to share this with everyone, and everyone needs to know this. And for a long time, there was a lot of frustration with my work because I felt like I have all the answers and no one wants to hear them. And this is a projected channel. So this needs to be invited out. This energy needs to be asked of in order to share the wisdom here. And so I think that I'm almost in this learning myself of the patience required with any sort of projected energy to wait for the right time to share it. While at the same time, I'm also learning myself the art of mindfulness, the art of being more aware of, so I feel like on the one hand, I do know so much and I resonate so much with the concept and the teachings and practices of mindfulness, but I'm still a student myself in learning how to really live mindfully and how to really embody um, this gift.
Right. And
Mm.
what I was thinking about is how, like, when I remember when we were kind of like talking a bit last time at the end when we were catching up about the connection for us between the 13 and the 33. And I said to you, I was like, Hannah, like, one, we make up this channel, but I felt like also our exchange of energy in the podcast and just in a lot of different things, like, this is the, like, sort of the magic of that channel, I feel, because it's
Yeah.
about kind of waiting. Essentially, from what I gather, it's like the 13 and the 33 have this relationship of collecting the stories, and then the 33 is sort of like um or no, like collecting through listening. But and then the 33, yes, okay, because it's going upward, right? So like the 13 is in the identity center and it goes then up towards the throat. And the 13 being this like really gifted, like active listener. And then the 33 being this, having this quality of being able to like pause and have that introspect or reflection to then share the story, or the learning or the lesson or the wisdom that wants to come. And I feel as if like that's what we experience kind of like on a weekly basis, right? Like we and I think like what we take in is life. So we take in life and we experience it and we're with it or whatever. And then we have a moment where we come and we sit, and whatever wants to kind of be like shared and reflected back from the experiences, then that's kind of like, well, welcome to the podcast. That's what
Yeah.
we do, you know? And I remember at some point since like this week, I was and maybe in the last couple of days, I was like, I feel as if this one might be one where like it's about kind of sharing how life feels right now in a way. Because I remember wanting to just talk about and share with you how there is an interesting new level of awareness that I've witnessed within myself lately. Like I'm really trying to practice not letting my mind run the show. And I was actually telling my therapist this week, where it almost seems like because I'm dropping more into my body and dropping more into my heart and trying to really practice more like grounding and be more grounded, that my mind has like accelerate, like it's revved up. It's like even like wanting to be louder and more and consistent and persistent and distract me really. And I don't know what your experience recently has been with like presence and awareness and mindfulness, but for me it's been like really sitting more in that observer seat of witnessing like, oh, this is really happening for me right now.
I had to mute myself because my cat is just going crazy. I'm just going to open the door so she doesn't.
That's fine. Yeah. Welcome, Nala. Come on in.
Come on in. The loudest cat that ever lived. Oh, like I think things like this is a perfect example of like the practice in witnessing. I'm witnessing like just this frustration in me that there's like noise going on. My partner was walking past before the window, and like I'm in a different setting right now. And yeah, absolutely. I feel the same. I feel like so much of this gene key to me feels like it is that non-judgmental witness, that observer of what's happening in the moment. And there was something that I wanted to share that I highlighted. Oh yeah, here it is. It's at this level that another interesting phenomenon occurs. The closer you come to the Siddhi quantum leap, the more challenging and intense your patterns appear to become. They are not, in fact, becoming any harder, but you are becoming more and more aware that you are asleep, which in turn makes you feel more and more uncomfortable. And this is exactly how I've been feeling lately, because all my shadows have been feeling almost more intensified. And I think it's because it's not that life is getting harder or I'm getting worse at coping. It's actually that I'm becoming more aware of those patterns. And I'd say that this work that you and I are doing together with exploring the gene keys in such a intensive way is just really like amplifying that awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because I've often shared with people like sometimes, and I'm sure I have maybe said this on the podcast before. Um, when you begin something that is transformative or in the realm of like self-discovery or healing or whatever, like at some point it almost feels like things are getting harder before they get easier. And then I was also speaking with a teacher of mine recently, and these are the feelings, these are the moments where I think we start to get like expanded to a new level. And
Yeah.
with that expansion, and it's like being stretched, um and having to meet yourself at a new experience that maybe wasn't there before. And it's just like it's almost like a game, but the game's never ending and the levels to the game are like infinite, right? And so right now I just sense that, like, yeah, same. I mean, I would say for me, not so much my shadows, but that um I'm observing the mind's ability to want to just chatter fucking away, like nonstop, just keep going and going. And it's been quite challenging to like sometimes I feel like I just have to go to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
like to quiet it. It's that it gets that intense. I was like, all right, just go to sleep.
And it's interesting because you have, from memory, all three of the gates in your crown center are defined, but you don't have a defined crown. And the crown is a pressure center. So if you're looking at the body graph, you've got the top is a pressure center, the crown.
Yeah.
And root is a pressure center as well, which you also have heavily defined gates, but not defined root. And I'm the same.
Yeah.
I don't have all three head center gates defined, but I have two of them. So I think both of us kind of feel this pressure coming from both angles. Like I've felt a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to like be doing things and starting things, like this kind of root energy. And it sounds like a lot of the mental, you also have a defined ajna, but like it sounds like there's a lot going on and this kind of pressure to make sense of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel it pretty pretty consistently. And so, I was actually going to ask you if you can share with us the reactive and the repressed nature of the shadow of forgetting.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't want to see like what's there for us within this conversation as well. And because I,
Sure.
can't read, I can't open the book.
Well, I love that you're really honoring that. Like, I really love that you're honoring that process of the
It's so
book.
funny because like Monday morning I had an appointment to go to and I got there a bit early, and so I was going through my emails and I came across like I have a subscription to somebody's Substack, and it got into my email and I was like, "Oh, I'll read this." And I'm just sitting in my car, I'm chilling, and I'm reading it, and I get to the end and I was like, fuck, like
You're meant to be reading.
I'm not supposed to be reading. Um, and then I was like, wait, but is this considered reading? Like it's technically like but in my mind, like yes, it was considered reading,
Mhm.
you know. And that's okay, but that's just a funny little thing.
I love that you shared that because it's just made me think of a couple of things. So I've heard it suggested before about having a bit of an information cleanse, and I suppose that's kind of what the artist way module or
That's correct.
activity
Yeah.
asking you to do. It's like cleansing yourself from taking in other people's information.
Mhm.
And as a creative,
Yeah.
a creative exercise, it's really asking you to like go inward and to not be like outsourcing your creativity or your ideas and inspiration. And I've also heard it said, as it relates to human design, that we're always being conditioned, because if you are interacting with anyone, whether that's following them on social media or reading a book or listening to a podcast or just having a conversation with someone, you're being impressioned, you're being conditioned by their energy in your open spaces, and you're conditioning them in your defined spaces. Like there's this interaction. And this gate is about retreat. This gate is the gate of privacy. So it's really about having time alone in order to like understand all of the lessons from whatever cycle you've been through. And I just think that's really interesting because it's probably something that's healthy for all of us, whether or not we have this gate defined in our chart,
Mhm.
to have these moments of retreat in our life where we're not taking in other people's energy.
Mhm.
And I'm a 2/5 and I have this gate defined, and I have a lot of individual circuitry, which is really about me expressing my individuality. And so I've recognized just the importance for me of having alone time, and how, when I think I said it in the 13th episode, when I first read The Gate of Privacy, I thought, well, I'm not a private person because
Mhm.
I'm very open with expressing myself and sharing what I'm going through and sharing my lessons. But as I've had this awareness through learning that this is actually defined in me, I've started to notice the places in my life where I do need privacy and I do need alone time, and just like contemplating what this word of privacy even means to me. It's just a word. It's like, what does that represent? It's that need for alone time. It's that need to like be in my own energy. So I think that's really interesting
Yeah.
what you shared.
Well,
Another,
oh, go
go
ahead. No,
ahead. Well, another thing that it brought up for me, and I'm trying to find the quote, but he says somewhere in the chapter about every situation in life is an opportunity for greater awareness or something along those lines. Uh, oh, here we go. There is no situation on earth that cannot be used as a means to raise your frequency and open your heart to your inner divinity. And it just made me think about how quick we are to look outside of ourselves for the answers, and how quick we are to look to what everyone's doing on social media, or to read all the books, or to listen to all the podcasts. And like, how often do we stop and just look at our lives and the situations that are arising in order to raise our frequency? Like, you don't have to go out and do all these big things. Sure, if you feel called to do that, go ahead and do it. But like, life is going to give you those situations that will help you to raise your frequency just in your everyday life. You don't need to go out and search for it. I think that's
yeah,
a big like myth in the spiritual world.
right, right.
Mm.
And, you know, it feels like so fitting that almost can't like be articulated, right? Kind of like what you were sharing earlier. Um, so yes, like this idea of like privacy, it being um allowing for things to like sort of process and cook, and kind of like I think of this idea of like things turning, right? You know what that is, that you bake,
Yeah.
right? They turn and you mix it and you mix it, and so that then it's ready to then like, I guess, like cook or whatever the next step. And this kind of feels like that process where you have this ability to kind of like expel so that you can take intel. Like, I
Mhm.
just know that for me, and I don't know all of the factors that make this up. Maybe it's the fact that I have a two in my profile. Um, I I don't know, right? But that's a big one. For me, it was shared that it could be best to like go to sleep. I think it's, yeah, I think it has to do with like maybe digestion too, for my digestion's high sound. I don't know if this has something to do with that. I can't remember. The point is that for me, it's really supportive to go to bed before I'm even tired. And
It's
then
a manifested
it's
thing.
a manifestor thing. See, I knew it.
Undefined sacral. Yeah.
So, right, okay, there we go. So with that, like I've been a little bit more sort of diligent of practicing that, like, okay, I'm not tired, right? But I kid you not, like I go to bed and I go to bed. Like I'm
Mm.
very fortunate in that circumstance where I will get in there and turn the lights off, and within minutes, like for the most part, I can't speak. I'm like already sleeping.
Mm.
And I've gotten in the habit so of like getting in the bed and just kind of like laying there, like not doing anything, not reading anything, not being on my phone. I kind of just stare at the wall for a few minutes, and then I'm like, all right, let's turn the light off. And then I just completely go to sleep. Um, and I'm surprised because it's like I don't think I'm tired, but my body is ready to like kind of wind down, shut down, and then hibernate. So I wanted to share that about like the retreat and the privacy. And also, sleep is such a rejuvenating, healing process that for me, that's really been supportive of like going to bed before I'm tired. And then I
Mm.
get really good sleep. Um, and then, yeah, like to bring it back to this task of like not taking in other people's creativity. I feel like I have had that tendency, whether it be social media or reading up the plethora of books you see behind me, right? Um,
Yeah.
to gather like inspiration. And you know what's funny? I feel like I actually get most inspired by film. Like by
Mm.
like not picture, like my
So
grandpa
yeah, video. Yeah.
talking about a movie, but by
Mm.
movies and TV shows, I get like really, really inspired. Like I remember when I was sitting, I was watching The Dark Knight in the movie theater when it came out, and I left that movie theater and I remember thinking, I'm gonna write a book.
Mm.
And I mean, till this day, I would love to write a book. I mean, I love writing. I don't know about what or when or whatever, that doesn't matter. But I felt so inspired. Like this has
Mm.
happened recently in watching some other things. But anyway, my point is that I find it I find this process really helpful for my
Mm.
own creativity to like let myself hear my own divinity and my own creativity coming up and exploring that and kind of having fun with it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting because it makes me think of the importance of self-awareness. And I know we've talked about this a few times. Like, I think this is what human design and the gene keys can really gift us with is awareness of what's for us and what's not for us, or, even just like trying things out. Of course, it's an experiment. So I want to be really careful not to take it too literally as well, because I think that that's a trap that I've fallen into, is taking my human design chart way too literally and then trying to, like, with my mind, think about how I should be instead of just being myself. But I think it can really give us a lot of intel about the different roles that we're here to play. And like, it is correct for a lot of people to look externally for inspiration or to
Yeah.
find inspiration in other things. If you have a defined G center, I mean, an undefined open G center, you should be looking outside of you for inspiration, or, you should be looking for guidance and direction from other people. That's completely okay. But I've just learned in my own experiment that for me, that's not helpful. And it's not to say that I don't still enjoy reading books and like consuming content and watching movies and things like that. I've just started to realize like the power of my intention behind how I'm doing that. And for example, if I'm in if I'm wanting to come up with ideas or create something myself, I'm not going to spend the day on social media, because that's just not going to help me to come up with my own ideas. I don't know if that really made sense, but it's just like,
Yeah.
the more we get to know ourselves, the more we can know what's for us and what's not for us. And like, yeah.
Mm. So I don't think you shared because you were telling me a quote. What's the reactive and what's the
Oh, yeah.
you're
I got distracted.
kind of forgetting.
I forgot. Story of my life, seriously. I feel like this shadow of forgetting, I mean, it's so innocent as well,
Yeah.
we all just forget.
Yeah.
It's this idea of like separation, right? And that's, I suppose, the illusion of the ego, is that we are separate beings, and we just forget. I'm just trying to find it. Okay, here it is. All right. It's the repressive nature is reserved. So these are extremely hidden people. They find it very difficult to communicate with others and often cannot break out of their own silence. They may have the experience of being forgotten by the world.
Mhm.
Okay, so the reactive nature is censorious. Rooted in anger, the reactive side of the 33rd shadow will express itself as an invasive behavior pattern that unconsciously tries to provoke reactions in others in order to not feel alone. The nature of this pattern is censorship. These people can be adept at understanding the emotional locks that keep others in a state of forgetting. Thus, they try to get attention by pointing out the negative patterns of others, sometimes under the guise of helping them. And I feel like I can express both of these. Like, I definitely have a tendency to kind of want to hide away and be reserved especially if I feel like, I think it's this like projected energy that I was talking about. If I feel like people don't want what I have to offer, part of me, and I've heard this about the 2-5, can get really like bitter and just be like, well, I'm not going to share anything with, I'm just trying to help people, but people don't want what I have to share. I'm just going to go do nothing.
Yeah.
But then I also noticed the tendency to pick fights in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of did it this morning with my
Mm-hmm.
husband. Like, we were getting ready to go out for a walk, and he said something, and I noticed my ego like arc up and kind of be like, well, I don't like that, and almost want to start a fight with him. And I think that that's like, yeah, that feeling of not wanting to be alone, or whatever it said. I
Yeah.
can't, yeah, wanting to feel alone. And yeah, it's just interesting. How about yourself? Do you
I
notice
mean,
that?
I feel like, um, yeah, I mean, I don't have this one defined, right? But I still have moments where I can experience both. I think I probably tend to like censor myself and shy away, like, mm, when I don't think that anything I say is going to make a difference.
Mhm.
And then on the other hand, like when I'm maybe going through something, like I actually didn't realize myself until recently that some people in my life have this perception of me that I don't share with them what's going on in my life until way after.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how your perception of yourself is different than how people perceive you. But such an eye-opening conversation, and something that I really kind of like took away and have been sort of just being mindful of, especially in my relationships with my friends and those that I love dearly. And then I can pick fights too. Like, I think I noticed this past couple of days, there was a moment where it's like, you know what it is? And I don't know if this comes up in maybe some of the other gates or some other circuitry or channels or whatever, but I like can't not say it. Like, and
Mm.
I know that I'm trying to not say it. And I
Yeah.
just, it's like, it doesn't matter. It has to like come out, right? Um, and
Was it you, or was it Alex at we went to Universal and someone
yes,
cut in
it
line,
was
and
Alex.
was it Alex who said something?
Yeah, we all kind of said something to the person.
Oh, oh yeah, I'm getting stories confused, but do you remember that? Someone cut in front of us, and I think Alex was just like, oh, the line's back there.
Yes,
Like
yes. Yeah, Alex definitely did that.
yeah.
But good, like, I mean, obviously there's a lot, dude. Back up.
I thought it was you for a second. That's why I was like, because you said sometimes you can't not say something. But I also
Yeah.
know that you have the gate of the fighter. So I'm sure there's that kind of energy coming out
The gate of
sometimes as
the
well.
fighter. And wow, I'm sort of having a little bit of a revelation here, because not only do I have the gate of the fighter, but I also have the gate of conflict, the 6.
Mm, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's actually very fitting, because I'm noticing that right now where I am in my process is trying my best to honor like the side of me that can be angry, or a bit, I guess you can call it feisty, is what some people characterize it as. And a bit like aggressive and like, yeah. Um, and not like aggressive, like I'm gonna go and chew someone's head off, just like I got something to say and I'm gonna say it, and it might not come off like the sweetest, right? And so allowing myself to um step into that and honor that, because I think for a long time I didn't, and I haven't wanted to. But anyway, so yeah, lots of interesting things can come up through this gate of 33 here. And can you share with me, because again, you have the book and you can open it. What is it that so you know how like you have the channel, do you know what it is like without gate 33, what happens to the 13th? That's in the
You,
human design book.
oh, okay. Without gate 33, your secrets may never be shared. And without gate 13, you may not have a sense of the right timing for sharing your lessons. So it's really about sharing. It's about the importance of retreating, being that time alone in order to know what to share, like what's valuable to share. And I'd really love to share something now that's coming to me. I think that it has been so healing for me to be surrounded by so many manifestors who are in their manifestor power without even realizing it. Like you and Alex, and my sister is a manifestor, and Travis, your partner, is a manifestor. And so I have been observing, and I'm not sure whether this is the 33rd gate or whether it's just me with a whole lot of projected energy in my chart. You know, I think that I really have a gift of observing other people. And it's like, I've noticed as well with our conversations, often I will you'll share something and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's clearly this part of your chart. Or do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm often kind of pointing to things that I've seen or I'm witnessing in your experience that may kind of make sense of why that's presenting. But it's been really healing for me to see so many manifestors just being themselves, because I've had a lot of trouble being in my power as a manifestor because of all the different, because I'm a super sensitive manifestor and I'm not like, I'm not a pure manifestor. I have an indirect connection from my heart to my throat, and it's on both sides with both channels. It's unconscious. So I have two channels that are made up by unconscious gates. And so I have, found it really healing to witness. Like, I remember you sharing at Christmas about how you just don't give gifts to people because you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my goodness, like I am the same. I also don't really believe in giving gifts, but I just could never. I just like feel this pressure to do what people expect of me and to like people please. And so it's been really healing for me to kind of witness you in your like, I don't give a fuck manifestor energy. And it's not that you don't give, it's not that you don't care. It's just like, you know what you believe in and you are really good at like sticking to that and honoring that.
Yeah. Oh,
So I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
thank you. And right before you were about to share that, I was thinking like, this is why I mean, I feel like if you really were to look at where we make up channels, and there's someone in the part, but really where like we make up channels is where like the divinity and the creativity and the inspiration and just like the connectivity of our not only relationship but of this podcast has like just birthed and grown and everything, because it's just so like, I remember last week we opened up the book and I was like, oh, we make up this channel, and I was like, this is it. And I still sometimes am in awe of the like our title, how it's called Led by.
Yeah.
And that's what this 1333 sort of feels like to me. Like we, come together and then we retreat, and then we come together and we retreat. And it's about like really the timing and the calling out of the stories and the gifts and the sharing and the listening, and the witnessing and then the observing of one another. So I mean, I don't know if you guys have a friend like Hannah, but you need to get yourself one.
And like,
Because- yeah, because I don't know if many people know this story, but I don't even know if we've talked about it. Maybe we have, because we often share the same things. But the whole like inception of the podcast was Hannah hearing me just say, I've been wanting to create a podcast. I've been wanting to do something. And we took the Gene Key, not the Gene Key, but the circuitry course. And I was just saying, like, maybe it'll be something with this and whatever. And a few days later, like, Hannah's voice noting me, like, I have this idea. I think we should do this. What do you think about it? And honestly, like, for me, witnessing your creativity has been my inspiration. Like with all the different things, whether it's your nail art videos or this stuff that you put, or how you just your cooking and the way you present it all. And like, I don't really know what your whole house looks like, but like your decor, all of it has just been so like beautiful and pretty to me that has inspired my own process of like, I'm definitely not cooking that much yet, guys, but I am, no, not baking, but I am like not painting, but coloring again, and just exploring different things. And so I even said to somebody recently that it's amazing how you can witness and experience the exchange of energy between two people. And I don't mean like the typical exchange of energy that you get when you meet somebody or when like you're really vibing or whatever. I feel like this process has allowed us to like explore the like specific like exchange of gate energy, right? Of like of that stuff, of this. And we have other channels at other times we'll probably get to. We've already talked about some, but
we
yeah,
have a lot. We have a lot.
a
Yeah.
lot, and almost make up like a whole circuitry channel.
Like a defined chart. Yeah.
Yeah, almost, so yeah, I just wanted to share that. And I think one thing that has really been a cornerstone of a lot of our conversations, and obviously is through the gene keys, but is both of ours like gravitation and love for the idea and the concept of presence and mindfulness,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that really joins our conversations really well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that that's like the ultimate remembering is not only our own true nature, but being able to witness and observe and appreciate those around us as well.
Mhm.
Not just fall into that trap of picking out other people's flaws,
Mhm.
but to recognize that we're all the same. We're all,
Yeah.
what we see in another is what we also see in ourselves. And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable when we see parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at. But I think that that's where the ego death, the idea of the ego death comes in, is witnessing that it's not really us. Yeah.
So lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely now like I can feel this like sort of new excitement to get like into reading now next week's
Yeah.
34.
I already skipped ahead because I got to
Hannah gets really eager.
I get to the end and I'm like, oh, what's the next one?
Right. Yeah, no shame. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys. We really love that you guys are here with us. And if you relate or resonate or have any comments, please let us know. But we'll see you next time.
See you soon. Bye.